Good morning. Today we're going to look at Unit 1, Lesson 3, Fractions and Decimal Connections. And at the end of this lesson, you'll be able to answer the question, how are fractions and decimals related? Number 1 for your do now for today says, look at the diagram on the right. What would that fraction look like as a decimal? So I'm going to have you actually read that by yourself. Can you see it? It says, to show you how well I understand fractions, I only did half of my homework. Well, that's not really good, so hopefully you do it all. So what would that look like as a fraction? So if you look at it, half, what does 1/2 look like? So hopefully you would all know it's 1/2. And if I said to you, hey, what would that 1/2 look like as a decimal? You would tell me what? Exactly. 0 and 5/10. And we're going to get into that, the connection between fractions and relationships between decimals and fractions. We're going to look at that today. Alrighty, so today we're just going to look at a quick introduction. We have a Venn diagram here. I'm sure you've seen this in ELA, but you're saying, hey, why am I seeing this in math? Maybe you've seen it in math as well. So the first thing I want you to look at is fractions and decimals. How are they similar? Well, one way they are similar is that they both express, so they express partial numbers. Express partial numbers. And you're going to copy this down in your notes as you're doing this. And another way they are similar is that they can be expressed by each other. So they can express or show, another word for express means to show, they can express, they can be expressed by each other. So they are definitely related. So the first thing I'd like you to look at is fractions. Let's take a look over here. So when we talk about fractions, how are they different? Well, fractions are really another way to say that they are ratios, and ratios of two numbers. Maybe you heard this last year, maybe you didn't, but a ratio are two numbers that are compared. Ratios basically compare numbers to each other. So if we look at our example that we gave at the do now, 1 to 2, if we look at 1/2, they compare one part to two parts. We know that the top part is called what? Yep, write that down. That's called the numerator, and I'm going to abbreviate. The bottom part is called a what? Yep, denominator. And what is this called in the middle? It's called the fraction bar. And what operation does that represent? It always represents division. Okay? Also, fractions are used for portions that are easily broken apart. Okay, so let's put that in there. They are used for portions, which is a part, portions that are easily, notice it says easily. Are there some weird fractions? Yeah, and sometimes they get a little complicated, but we like to use fractions to identify parts that are easily broken apart. Now, boys and girls, when we're doing this, you should be copying this into your workbook as we're doing it, okay? And a fraction is also a different way. So if you're home today and you do come in tomorrow, make sure that this is all written in your workbook, okay? A different way to represent division, okay? So in this case here, it really means when we look at the fraction 1/2, it really means one part out of 2, but it also means 1 divided by 2, okay? So in that case there, so if example, it's 1/2, it really means it could be written 1 out of 2 or 1 divided by 2. Okay, now when you divide 1 by 2, you'll say, Mrs. Patola, you can't break 1 into two parts. Oh, yes, you can. We call that what? 1/2. But if you do the division, the long division, you'll also notice that it turns into a decimal, okay? And that's the other part. The outcome of a fraction division is a decimal. is a decimal. Okay, let's look at a decimal. What is a decimal? Decimals are, ready, little bullet here, numbers that fall between integers, and are described, okay, they are described, you should be copying this down, as digits following a decimal point. And that little point, boys and girls, is called not a dot, it's called a decimal point. It's also, decimals are based on units of 10, In other words, that's each of the place value, units of 10. It's based on their place value. So for example, here's my decimal. What's this place? This is tenths, right? And remember, we noticed that decimal places end in THS. Tenths, hundredths, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s. You can go ahead and label that on your own, okay? And also, decimals are used to describe more complex numbers. Actually get this out, describe complex numbers, and infinite numbers, in other words, numbers that go into infinity. Can you identify what is one infinite number? Like, in other words, goes on and on and on. Can you think of one? Alrighty, good. If you said pi, that's the symbol pi, it's 3.14, and then it goes on and on and on and on, dot, until infinity. Okay? Alrighty, let's take a look. Turn the page. I'm going to keep this lesson very brief today. Okay? So it says here, you can show the connection between decimals and fractions using hundreds grids. Let's bubble this up. Okay, bubble that up. Here is a great example of what you want to do today. Okay, we'll do one or two of these together, and then you're going to do the rest on your own. Okay, so when it tells you to, for example, if we look at our first example in the do now, it was 1/2. We shade in how many are in the grid? There are 100. So if I were to shade in 50, that is 1/2. Okay, so notice here they are shading 1/2. Okay, 1 divided by 2 equals 0.5, which is 50%. We are not focusing on percents today. Okay, let's do this one here. It says use the directions for your activities for today. Use each grid to represent the fraction and decimal. Okay, so number 1, there's 100 here. It says shade and write 25 squares out of 100. So this really should be review for you. So you could take a highlighter, a crayon, just shade a pencil, and we're going to do 25 out of 100. So I like to use my highlighter. Here's 10, here's 20, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we're going to represent that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll represent that. How do I write that as a fraction? 25 out of 100. And as a decimal, I can write it as 0.25. Now, if you can simplify the fraction, go for it. How do we simplify? We find the greatest common factor, and then we would divide by that number. Okay, so if I look at these two here, see if you remember from last year, you would divide each. What's the biggest number that goes into both of them? 25. So 25 divided by 25 is equal to 1/4. And if you think about it, and we always box up our answers, by the way, if we look at it, 1/4 or 1/4, think about a quarter. If you had a quarter in change in your pocket, how much would that be worth? Yes, it would be worth 25 cents, and that's represented as 0.25. Okay, let's do one more together. Shade and write 75 squares out of 100. So we would go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 75. And you could shade this all in and make it really nice. Okay, as a fraction, what does that look like? 75 out of 100. or 0.75. And Mrs. Spatola would ask you, hey, is there a common factor? Is there a number that goes into both of these? Yes, again, it's 25. So we would divide each of these by 25, divide by 25. What do we wind up with? 3/4. Now think about it, or 3/4. When you have a denominator that's 4, we know that that's written as a quarter. So what does that look like? If you had 3/4 in your pocket, how much money would you have? Exactly, you would have 75 cents, and it's represented here. All right, your homework or your classwork for today is going to be the next page, page 20. Okay, you guys are going to go ahead and do 20. 3, 4, 5, and 6, shade and simplify. And you can do, we're going to skip over this. We're going to skip over this. And then you're going to do page 23. Okay, 23. Try this one on your own. It says complete each section, fill in the blanks. So now we're showing the connection between decimals. Well, I'll do this one for you, okay? So these are directly related. So if this is 0.2, what is this? Good, 0.1, because it's 1/10, 2, 3, 4. What would this be? Good, 0.5, 6, 7, 0.8. And then you would go through here and you would get 1 whole. Now, if I look at this, this is 1/10. This is 2/10, but notice all of these fractions here are what they call in simplest form. There goes my big hand again. Simplest form. Okay, so if this is 2/10 here, this is really 2/10. How do we simplify that? We would divide the numerator and denominator by 2/2. So what do we get? 1/5. And then I see this one here, 7/10. Can that be simplified? No, so that's simply 7/10. And we completed that together. All right, ready? This is your other challenge. This is a decimal challenge. I want you to try this one on your own. Now, you're going to have to label these number lines. Here is 1 whole, here is 0, here is 1 whole, and then here is 2. Okay, and what you're going to do for this one is you're going to label first all of the tenths. I'm not going to do this for you. You're going to try your best. Okay, so here at the top, we can make this 0.1, 0.2, and so on. And all they want you to do, it's a decimal challenge, try to label all of the decimals and find their spots on the number line. Now, it's not that easy sometimes because it's in between the tenths. So for example, let me do the first one here. Letter C is 0.38. So if we look at C, look here. This is 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5. Now notice where point C is. It's before 0 and 4/10. You see that? So it's pointing before it. So that is point C. So that's 0.38. This is a challenge. Try your best. Alrighty, and that's it for today. All right, your Google form is going to be pretty basic today. I'm not going to really put a lot of pressure on you. Hope you have a great day, and be prepared because tomorrow we're going to look at more fractions and decimals, and it's going to get really great from here. Alrighty, have a great day.